Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the School Building Committee to order. The time is 5:05 p.m., and we'll go ahead and start with a roll call. Mr. Avil? Mr. Devon is not here. Chairwoman Fisk-Heeger?
Here.
President Hume is traveling. Mayor Kokoris?
Yep.
Superintendent Lee?
Yep.
Mr. Spellman is away. Ms. Cicello?
Here.
And the chair is here. Great, thank you very much. Everybody should have had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting, which was May 23rd, 2022. Any comments or concerns with regards to the draft? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
There's been a motion made in the second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? I think everybody was here. Great, thank you. Okay, so we do have lots of folks with us this evening, and our next item on the agenda is to update the membership and welcome some new employees to the School Building Committee. I believe we have with us this evening Sarah Kaufman, who joined us as of July 1st as the Director of Finance and Operations. Ms. Kaufman, hate to put you on the spot, but we'd love to have you up, and if you could tell the group a little bit about yourself.
I'm Sarah Kaufman. I think I just met a few of you, and I've met most of you before. I started July 1st in the role of Director in Finance and Operations for Braintree Public Schools. I replaced Ed Cronin, who retired, and I came to Braintree Public Schools from Milton Academy, where I was the Associate Director of Analytics in their Finance and Operations Department in the business office.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman. We look forward to having you join us as part of the Building Committee. And I believe what we need to do is a formal vote to approve Ms. Kaufman's membership in the place of Ed Cronin, who did retire at the end of June. And so I guess first I'll ask, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Kaufman? Okay. Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve Ms. Kaufman's appointment to the School Building Committee as a non-voting member.
So moved.
There's been a motion made and there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Welcome, Ms. Kaufman, to the committee.
Thank you.
And the next update we have is to appoint Ms. Nora Vernaza, the new Assistant Superintendent with the district, who will be replacing Interim Superintendent Courtney Miller on the committee. Ms. Vernaza is not with us this evening, but Superintendent Lee, if you could tell us a little bit about her, and then we can move to discussion and a vote if the committee feels appropriate.
Comes to us from the Boston Public School System, where she was headmaster of one of their schools. Obviously, she is taking over from Ms. Miller. We are very excited about the addition, as we are Ms. Kaufman, and I think she'll be a valuable asset to this committee.
Great. Does anybody from the committee have any questions with regards to Ms. Vernaza's appointment? And unless anybody objects, I would look for a motion, to approve Ms. Vernaza's appointment as a non-voting member to the committee.
So moved.
There's been a motion made and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. So we will go ahead and update the membership for the MSBA and provide them with a copy of that for their records. I did also just want to recognize a couple folks with us this evening. We have Director of the Department of Public Works, Jim Arsenault, with us, as well as our Facilities Director, Mike McGurty. I know that folks in this room have probably seen and heard a lot from them over the last several weeks, that they have fully engaged in the consolidation of the maintenance programs in the school department. And so I expect, much to perhaps their chagrin, we will be seeing more of them at these meetings as we move forward, and we'll be looking for updates kind of on progress in the facilities and how things are going. But I did just want to recognize them both and thank them for being with us this evening. So thank you both. And moving right along, we have the East Middle School project update. We have David Billings with us this evening from Hill with some good updates and progress reports on what's been going on over at East.
Good evening, everyone. So you know, East construction is complete. We finished all the punch lists and the items that were outstanding. The original budget was $83.4 million. We had a bid project number of 82.6. The total encumbered to date is 82.1. So, and we've only spent just over $82 million, which means that we have a remaining contingency of $439,000. We have a bid savings of $864,000 for a total project savings of $1.3 million. The project has, as I've said, is complete. We have submitted final payment requests to the MSBA. That kind of kicks off their audit process. We have a little more paperwork to do with them in a budget revision for some of the design and OPM contract amendments that have been executed. We just need to update their budgets. We do need to close out the construction, which is the completion of the grading permit by the planning board. Once that is complete, then we can obtain our final certificate of occupancy. We need that in order to start the full MSBA closeout process. We have all the other documents into the MSBA. They're just waiting on that one document. They are already starting the audit, but they need that to officially start the clock on their audit process. We are looking to get a new plaque. We'll go through one more shop drawing on that, and then hopefully we can get that within the next couple of months. There was one outstanding design issue for MDS, which is a platform around rooftop unit number 9, which is over the library. I'm still working with MDS for them to put a package together. That's probably something that's going to need to go out to bid. This is a scope of work that was outside of the contract, and Schematic said that they would not do. So that's why we have to go outside the contract and bid this as a separate little project, very similar to the corridor tiling project that we did last summer. So that's about where we stand on the MSBA. We are very, very close to completing it once we get the grading permit, which I believe is going to be on the August agenda for the planning board to close that out. Then we can complete with the MSBA, and it's usually a 3 to 4 month process for them to go through the audit before they come back with their final reimbursement amount and the final total budget.
Does anybody have any questions for David on East and the closeout? Okay, so hopefully we are looking at a new plaque in the next couple of months, and we can finally do that grand opening that we've been talking about and anticipating for so long. So that's great. Thank you very much, David.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Moving on to South Middle School, we have several folks with us this evening. I'm going to guess that Doug Murray is going to join us at the podium, and while he's coming up, we also have Principal Rainey with us this evening and Brian Pace from MDS. Thank you, everybody, and also Mike Carroll's with us from Hill tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Take it away, Doug.
All right, good evening. The update on South, this is after the meeting notes, our project dashboard. In the last month, or month and a half now, we've accomplished. The foundations have been completed for the most part. There's still the entry canopy. They're still working on those. Those foundations. Steel has, at the upper level, has progressed to almost complete. They'll be starting the area, the gym area, in the next week or so. The rock crusher came back. We've cleared out the area for the underground retention system number 2. Number 1 is in, so they'll be digging number 2 in the next week or so. And then we began light gauge framing at the exterior walls, so you can see it going up at the kitchen. Underground piping and conduit for electrical is pretty much done, and we plan on having our first slab meeting tomorrow morning. So we are on schedule. Work to be done this summer includes, we've got rid of the modulars this past week, so that's good. And we'll be working on the east parking lot in that area down to the east of the site, and we'll be discussing that a little later. In terms of budget update, we next part of the package is all the bills. We're looking for acknowledgement. We have 3 PCOs from Bacon this month for the paper road extension. That's that road in the back connecting it to the Richard Road pavement. Ledge at Kenmore Road, when they were excavating for the water line and sewer extension, they encountered ledge. Because of obstructions from utilities, that was done on a time and materials basis. And then at the solar screen, we added steel and detailing to allow that to be field bolted to avoid having to come back and try to regalvanize in the field for welded connections. And then because we've 2 cycles here, we've got Miller Dice Spears, LGCI is our environmental consultant, CMA Otis, the civil engineer, Hill International, and 2 payments from Bacon for May and June, April and May, and a total of $7 million. So $7,093,000 and change. And we are still on budget, which we will again be coming back to in a few minutes. The next part of the package. Any questions before I move on? The next part of the package is attachment F for contractor designer services. This is to capture a couple more design items. One for the east parking lot, again, which I'm going to come back to in a few minutes, and additional geotechnical site visits during construction. In their original proposal, they had 45 site visits due to the timing and nature of the pours. They've added another 10 visits, and this is to capture that cost. Both were, I don't want to say anticipated, but both were expected to be reimbursable or contingency items, because you can never predict exactly how many site visits could be required. So we are looking for an acknowledgement on that as well. All right. And moving on, the next thing in your package unfortunately didn't make it into the stuff that got mailed out on Thursday. It is a change order for the east parking lot, which we spoke about last month. As we discussed during value engineering, that parking lot from what is now the construction fence now, or relatively the basketball courts, out to the Peachtree was just to be milled and overlaid. Having looked at it, and having the site guys look at it, milling probably will tear up half the pavement to begin with, so we're creating a problem that we won't be able to correct. So what we have proposed is to add in a new parking lot, new paving, rip up the existing paving, regrade it, and repave it. So bulletin PCO number 38, an amount of $154,047 is presented. It's over $100,000 ad, so we're asking for the committee to approve it. And this is for the repaving of that lot to put down binder course. They own the top course. They're still going to provide that. This is to pull up the existing, regrade it, and then put down a binder course, which we will do this summer while we're doing the other work down in that area. And then the idea is that they have a year to drive over it, anything that needs to be compacted or redone before they top coat it next summer. So when we get a final coat in 2023, you'll get a nice clean parking lot at that point. It does not include, it's for clearing all the land, the landscaping and the fencing and all that's down there. It does not include the fencing costs and things like that for now, and the landscaping costs, because we're going to clear it out, and then we will have some additional expenses for that later.
Can I just ask you a question, Doug? In talking about repaving that lot, is that going to impact, or is there any discussion about the number of spaces that exist in the lot and whether it will increase as a result of the work that we're doing over there?
It is showing, the current schedule is showing, and tell me if I'm wrong, Brad, but from what I understand, we are reproducing what's out there. We are actually going, just because of the lane width, we're actually going to make the lot a little wider so they get the full travel lane in between them.
Perfect. Okay. What was the total amount for the PCO?
It was $154,047.
Does anybody have any questions specifically about the parking lot or the repaving costs, since we are going to be looking for approval for that amount?
Mike just pointed out, we're going to have more usable space in that lot. It'll say number of spots, but
My recollection when we walked the space was there was some discussion about moving the edge of the parking space a little bit closer to the fence line so that we create a wider lane down the middle and greater access on both sides. So
Correct.
same number of spaces, right, but just more accessible, more user-friendly given the width of the entirety of the area. Is that
Correct.
fair? Okay. Does anybody have any questions specifically about the parking lot? Okay, so where that needs approval, I would be looking for a motion to approve a PCO in the amount of $154,047 to cover repaving of the parking lot. It's been a motion made in a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, and that is unanimous. Thank you.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and we're going to discuss, the one thing that we did add in there is, or the last part of the package was the project funding agreement, which had been circulated from the MSBA. Mike can address the particulars of that.
Doug, before you leave the podium, were there other items that you needed the committee to acknowledge this evening, and do we want to do that before we switch gears?
The acknowledgement were the 3 PCOs that we had processed from Bacon, 21 in an amount of $21,767.14, PCO 25 in the amount of $29,536, and PCO 30 in the amount of $3,855, for a subtotal of $55,158.14.
Does anybody have any questions on those 3 items that were previously approved? So with that, we would just be looking for a motion to acknowledge PCOs 21, 25, and 30 in the amount of $55,158.14. There's been a motion made in a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Mike, the floor is yours.
All right, so I'm here to talk a little bit about the project funding agreement and the adjustment to that. As the committee may remember, as we move forward through the process with the MSBA, part of their approval process is they submit a project funding agreement, and we sign that at the end of schematic design, and that basically defines our budget from then forward. Really, the only time we make an adjustment to that budget is after the construction contract has been bid out and awarded and issued. Any adjustments to the funding agreement based off of that are made. Typically, if you're over budget, they ask the town where the money's coming from. If you're under budget, they look to potentially take back their portion of what's under budget. As you may remember, we have a reimbursable rate, but it's reimbursement of eligible costs. And there's a lot of costs that are not eligible. Some of them are related to percentages of site work or percentages of costs related to the OPM fee or the designer fee, but there's also another one that is a cost per square foot limit. So we were fortunate that we came in under budget, and we had a bid under budget. Most of that value that we're under budget still exceeded that cost per square foot. So the good news is that most of the savings we got are kind of coming from the town side, more than a 50-50 split like you might expect, that the MSBA would take half of that savings. But in reality, I believe we're just about $30,000 difference from where we were 2.5 years ago when we signed the agreement. So the MSBA has submitted that to us. We've reviewed it. We can get into some of the details if you want. Doug did provide kind of a summary sheet, I think, to everybody in your package tonight that shows where we were and where we are now, and you can kind of see it's really all in the construction value. That's really, nothing else changed as far as costs for moving or technology or anything like that. It's the overall construction value, and then it does affect the contingencies at the bottom because the contingencies are based on a percentage. One of the things we always do tell you to look at when you're looking at that 3011 form, which is the backup form, is they have the maximum grant, and then they have a couple of lines for the contingencies and the potential. Maximum grant goes up a little bit based off of that. More than likely, change orders are going to be deemed ineligible, so we always say look at that first number, not the second number, which is the lower. It's a little more conservative way of looking at it, but what we typically tell you is if the MSBA does participate in a change order and pay for it, kind of think of that as a bonus. Realistically, we should expect that any change orders are going to be coming from the town side there. So the MSBA did submit this on June 17th. They do need to have it executed, so be happy to answer any specific questions, but otherwise, I'd be asking for a vote tonight to make a recommendation to the mayor to have him execute the updated agreement.
Does anybody have any questions for Mike? Okay. I don't have any questions either. So with that, we would be looking for a motion to authorize Mayor Kokoris to execute the First Amendment to the project funding agreement between the town and the MSBA. Been a motion made and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great.
Excellent. The only other thing that we would have on this is there's basically 3 ways that we can adjust the budget now. The first way is to take the full savings out of the project budget. You always have the ability to add it back in later. My philosophy is I don't like to ever add something back in that I already took out previously, so I probably wouldn't recommend that. The second option would be the other extreme, is leave the full value in there, which would basically grow the town share, if you will. The third option, which is what we did at East, is to adjust the budget down based off the value the MSBA is taking, so you'd adjust what they're taking back out of the budget, and really, it's a very minimal adjustment on this. But that's what we did at East, and it allowed us to move forward. Again, you always have the flexibility to adjust that down the line. You don't have to take action tonight, but if you wanted to adjust that budget accordingly, we would just make that reduction at this time, and then going forward, you would always see that on the dashboard and then on the budget updates going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So do we want to make that adjustment that way then? Or do we want to think about it and come back next meeting?
Why don't we wait and confirm that next
Okay,
meeting?
perfect.
Thank you.
All right, I don't have anything else.
Does anybody have anything else for South? I just want to make sure we didn't miss any approvals or acknowledgements that you need for the project at this point, right? No? Okay, great. Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Make sure to check out the drone footage. Those of you watching at home, it's really cool. You can watch the progress of the site. All right, so wrapping on South, we're going to move to the accelerated repair projects. As folks know, we are currently engaged in 2 separate accelerated repair projects. The first is at Highlands and Liberty, and the second is at Hollis and Flaherty, and we do have representatives from all involved agencies with us this evening. So we'll go ahead and start with Highlands and Liberty, and we've got with us Rob Tedisco from P3 Project Planning to offer us an update, and everybody should have received the design schedule in their packets this week.
Evening. So just a bit of process on where we have been since we last came before the committee. The last time we were here, we spoke a bit about our process getting to schematic design, developing a budget, and developing scope, most importantly. We have since submitted both Highland and Liberty schematic design packages to the MSBA. The MSBA has followed up with their consideration on the grant amounts for both schools, and we have just recently submitted the recent design development 60% submittal to the MSBA. So we have updated those budgets since schematic design. But before I get into the numbers, I just wanted to reflect back on the scope. Pretty early on, we had some concerns about the budget, specifically to the Highland School. Since schematic design, we've had to throttle back on the scope. So since then, we have removed what's referred to in the drawings as Roof A, which is the main building's slate roof. In order to stay within a reasonable budget and without turning that project into a massive alteration related to accessibility and things of that nature, we had to remove roof A out of the project, as well as 2 other roof sections in that building. Thankfully, none of the roofs that we've removed from the scope are problematic as of today. The roofs that are leaking quite badly and that are hazards, those are within our project. So we've proceeded with that. Liberty School, we are replacing the entirety of that roof system. There's only one slither of that roof that the MSBA is not participating with because it is not, does not exceed 30 years in age. Thankfully, that's only, I think it's 2,100 square feet of roof. So the number of, the cost that was ineligible there is relatively small. So after our latest and greatest 60% construction estimates, the total project budget as of today for the Highland School is $2,207,531. The total project budget projection for Liberty School, $2,647,317. Coupled together, that's a total design development budget of $4,847,023. During the approval process with MSBA on considering eligible and ineligible expenses, they did subtract a number of costs on both projects, most notable to HVAC equipment. Early on, we had like every project, we have a desire to replace as many of the rooftop units as we can because it's cost effective to do so. Given our budget constraints, we throttled back on that as well. So we're really only replacing the mostly exhaust fan units that are either inoperable or just absolutely at the end of their life. But MSBA, as you may know, does not participate in HVAC equipment. They withdrew a number of costs for that, and we were able to analyze those numbers and make sure that they were just subtracting the material cost of that alone, because they will participate in the labor of removing and putting back a unit, whether it's existing or if it's new. They'll still pay for that labor effort. In terms of the projected grant, with the ineligibles considered, my papers are getting shuffled here. Both schools combined, there's going to be a total maximum facilities grant of $2,257,090. That's your maximum grant.
And Rob, is that split a certain way between the two, or is that the?
They are split. They are independent. Do you want those 2 independent numbers? Sure. So the Highland School has a total maximum facilities grant of $988,509. And the Liberty School max facilities grant, $1,268,581.
So where do we go from here?
So we attached the schedule along with the agenda. Right now, we are, like I said, we're post 60% submittal. The architect projects they'll be completed with the 100% packages by the end of next month. At that point, we'll be ready to do public advertisements for bidding. Our intent at this point is to bid both projects independent from one another. We think that's going to yield better results. We think there's potentially more roofers out there who can handle one of the projects versus 2. So that's our intention as of today. We still have some things to work out procurement-wise. Between now and then, you know, any special conditions that the city wants to see in those bid documents. So we'll take the time between now and, you know, maybe four weeks from now to iron out those details to make sure that any provisions are in those documents that are similar to other projects that you have. And then once we get bidding done in late September, if this schedule holds true and the city accepts it, we'll be ready to start construction this time in 2023. Unfortunately, with the way the markets are right now, with material shortages, things of that nature, we're now having to bid roof projects a year prior to their start date. There's usually nowadays about 8 months lead time for roof membrane projects, just materials rather, just like ours. So PVC, insulated tapered insulation, fasteners, things of that nature, are all good 8 months to get. So fortunately, MSBA understands that. This is a common schedule that they see now, so there's no consequence from an MSBA standpoint to push the schedule to next year.
Okay. Great. Does anybody have any questions about Highlands and Liberty? No? Okay. Leon, please.
Just one question on the Highlands roof, that area that you can't replace. I understand the budget constraints, but you feel like those roofs aren't leaking, or has there been any water testing or any evidence there's no leaking there?
We didn't perform any water tests, but we got several points of feedback from facilities or custodians that there really weren't any significant issues. We know that that roof is old, and we identified, the architect did a full study that they identified 400 individual shingles that were either missing or damaged, but there were no significant or significant historical issues with that roof leaking. As much as we'd want to do it, and it would be a beautiful roof if we could do it, but it would have put the project at, plus 7 figures even,
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions for Rob? Great. Thank you, Rob. So as
Okay.
we continue moving forward, we'll see you at our future meetings. Looking forward to getting the updates.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving right along to our most recent accelerated repair project with Hollis and Flaherty Elementary Schools. Folks probably remember Brian LaRoche, who was with us last month, from PCA 360. Joining us this evening at the podium is Michael Ulickney. Did I get that right? Ulisny, thank you. Also from PCA 360, and we are also joined by Talant Miloshi from PWA Architecture, who is our architecture assigned to the project. Thank you.
Okay, so since Brian met with you last, we have executed the contracts, and BWA, Talan, has been out to site 2 times to measure, and he was out there with a team of engineers, and he'll go into that a little bit, just a little bit. We got the draft schematic reports that we will send over to you tonight for both schools. The estimates are expected back in 2 weeks from AM Fogarty. One question we had for you, we were directed by Ed to stay below the 30% ADA compliance threshold for Hollis. Is that what the building committee would like us to aim our design for?
We're certainly not looking to avoid any project requirements that come along with the costs, but we definitely want to have a conversation just around funding and availability of resources before we move projects forward if they look like they're going to exceed any thresholds requiring additional work.
Understood. So Talon will be out at the sites cataloging all the possible ADA compliance upgrades that will be needed. As you can see here, our total project budget so far for schematic design only are $67,100 for Hollis and $73,700 for Flaherty. No invoices have been submitted at this time, and you can see our project milestone schedule below there. Another question that I had was, we are expecting the schematic design reports right after the estimates, and we'll be issuing that to you for review. If, for whatever reason, the August committee meeting is canceled, is there somebody that would be able to sign? There's a MSBA form that would be needed to be signed to approve the SD report, so we can send it over to the MSBA for approval?
So we could certainly resolve that if it became an issue, but I anticipate, given all the other projects that are ongoing, that the committee will be meeting at least once in August.
Understood. All right. Well, then I will ask Talon to come up here and give you a little breakdown on what we're doing at the 2 schools.
Absolutely. Thank you. Please.
Hi, so my name is Taulan Miloshi. I'm with BW Architecture. We are the architects that are working with PCA 360 on those two projects for Hollis Elementary School and Flaherty Elementary School. We are in the process of working with schematic design reports, and we are working with our engineers, which have been on site and have done all of their due diligence work for recording all of the existing conditions. We also had we did some test cutting for the roof to look at the composition of the roof and also do the tests for the asbestos-containing materials. And we have all of those reports from them and from the engineers. And as I said, we are preparing 2 reports, one for each school. And today we are at the point that we have all of the findings and recommendations written down, and we have a draft report for each school, except for the cost estimates. Our estimator just started to work on that, and he would need like 2 weeks to turn it over. So basically, we're looking at July 26th to have the cost estimates and the schematic design reports with drawings, outline specs, and estimates for your review. And we would appreciate it if we have your review by August 16th, so that we can pick up any comments and refine our reports, make our final edits for being ready with the final schematic design report by August 30th to send it to MSBA.
So if you're able to provide a copy of the draft reports on the 26th, perhaps the committee could review and offer comments in advance of a meeting mid-August, so we could provide those and take a vote that evening, giving you plenty of time to submit for the 30th.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Talant on Hollis and Flaherty, or for Michael? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. So I think we've recognized and welcomed everybody that's here. I don't see any members of the public with us this evening, so we'll go ahead and talk about next dates, which, given the thresholds for specifically the Hollis and Flaherty projects, is going to be important. So I'm looking at Monday, August 15th, which would then provide a couple of week buffer after the 26th, but also a couple of week buffer before the 30th. So that should give everybody an opportunity to review and offer comment, and then have that be incorporated. So unless there's any strong objection to August 15th, we'll go ahead and pencil that in for 5 o'clock here in Cahill Auditorium, which will also allow BCAM to record and share the video of this meeting. And before we adjourn, I want to thank Jerry and Bill, who are with us this evening, as I mentioned, with BCAM Recording Live, for sharing with the public who wasn't able to be with us this evening. And thank you to everybody else that has joined us from P3, PCA, PWA, Hill, and MDS. And again, thank you to the members of the committee. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been a motion made in a second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. Have a great night, everybody.